I heard the door slowly opening. I thought it was my dad who had got up to go to the bathroom, but I didn't hear him leave, so I thought he had just opened the door a little to let more air in, so I didn't pay so much attention. I didn't open my eyes and kept trying to sleep. But just at that moment, I heard the burly laugh of a little girl. This happened in the already distant year 1990. At that time, we lived in a ranch that my parents took care of. The ranch was very far from any town, and we didn't have electricity. To illuminate ourselves once the sun was hidden, we used lighters and other artifacts made with glass containers, mesh, and diesel. At that time, my family was made up of my parents, a little older brother, my 2 little sisters, and me. The little house where we lived only had 2 rooms. One was the bedroom and the other was the kitchen, separated by a small hallway. The bathroom was outside, and we had to go out and walk a few steps to get to it. That night when this terrible experience happened, it was summer. My brother and I were very hot, so we decided to sleep outside the rooms, in the corridor. This was protected only by a cyclonic mesh door, which prevented the dogs from entering the small house. It was the first time we slept outside. That night, in particular, the heat was unbearable, but my parents and my little sisters stayed inside. Around 3 in the morning, I woke up because I needed to urinate. I opened the mesh door and left the house. I felt the air coming from everywhere very comfortably, and the moon illuminated everything with clarity. It was the only source of light we had out there. After doing my business, I returned to the corridor and lay down again. I was face up with my eyes closed, enjoying the fresh air that entered through the door. Suddenly, I heard the sound of the door of the room opening slowly. I thought it was my dad who had got up to go to the bathroom, but I didn't hear him leave, so I thought I had just opened the door a little to let more air in, so I didn't pay much attention. I didn't open my eyes and kept trying to sleep. But just at that moment, I heard the burly laugh of a little girl. And although I have younger sisters, that wasn't heard like any of them. Confused, I opened my eyes and turned to the door of the room that only had about 20 centimeters of opening, and in all that darkness I saw a girl who was zooming in behind her. I could only see half of her face, which was her left eye, half of a smile that let me see her teeth, and also part of her lacy hair. And when she realized that I was watching her, she closed the door and laughed again. I could hear her clearly. That girl was playing with me, while I didn't know what to feel or what to think. I knew well that that girl was none of my sisters, but I couldn't imagine that it could be something else, since we didn't have visitors. She wasn't some other relative or friend of my sister's. I remained motionless, lying down, looking at the door and surprised by what was happening. Suddenly, I heard the sound of the door opening again, but this time, it did so completely, and that girl stood right in the frame, letting herself be seen clearly. And that's when I felt the most intense fear I've ever experienced in my life, because at that moment I found out that I was right. That girl was none of my sisters, but the worst and most scary of all was that she was floating several centimeters from the ground, just below me. My heart beat strongly when I saw her. I tried to find an explanation for what was happening. I remember clearly that she was a little girl, maybe about 4 or 6 years old, with short hair. She was wearing a white dress. She knew very well that I was staring at her, and that she had me very terrified. I know because she gave another disturbing smile and went into the room, closing the door again. Then I heard that doorbell again when I opened it, and there she was again, standing on the threshold. And then she repeated the same action, as if she were playing with me. Her laugh was disturbing. It was strange. Seriously, it makes me cold to remember her. I tried to throw her off the blanket to cover me completely from head to toe, but my brother had her tangled up in his body and I couldn't cover myself completely, so the only thing I could do was lie down face down so I wouldn't see her again, wishing and hoping that she would disappear and I could feel safe again, but it was the other way around. I heard her laughter approaching, and I felt that she was right next to me. I was terrified. I had never felt so vulnerable, and she did what I never thought would happen. She crouched down, and as she laughed, she began to prick my ribs with her fingers. I kept my face down with my arms, and I yelled at her to leave and leave me alone. But she didn't. She kept laughing and having fun with me. The strange thing is that it seemed that no one could hear my screams, not even my brother, who was sleeping exactly next to me. Finally, after I don't know how many seconds or minutes, from inside the room my father asked what was wrong, and then he got up and left the room with a lamp in his hand. At that very moment, I stopped hearing the girl's laughter, and she left me in peace. I think it was at that moment that she disappeared, since I did not see her again after that. My father came out and asked me if I was okay. I got up and ran into the room. I was very terrified and almost on the verge of tears. I told him everything that had happened, and I think he did believe me from the first moment, since he told me that I should better go to sleep with them again. That was the first and last night I slept outside. Being calmer, I couldn't explain how the girl was able to open the door, being that we always left it secured with a wire so that my sisters would not go out into the field at night. And she opened it as if nothing. And when my father got up to see what was happening, he had to remove the wire first to open the door. It's one of the many things that I can't explain how it happened. Besides, my brother woke up the next morning and didn't notice anything. Until today, 33 years later, I don't know who could have been that girl because, luckily, it was the only time I saw her. Every time I remember this experience, I can't help feeling chills. However, thinking about it, I think that little one wasn't bad. Rather, she was a wandering and playful soul, who that night decided to have fun with me. However, while she laughed, I was dying of fear. As I mentioned, that was the only time she introduced herself to me. But from that night on, we were not going to sleep without lighting a candle and praying for her soul. I think that helped us not to see her again.